We definitely believe he pulled the trigger. The FBI lab report confirms that, so definitely the trigger was pulled.
Mr. Baldwin had a duty at the base level to never hold a gun and point it at a person while pulling the trigger. But he also had a duty as an actor and a producer on that set to have the bullets checked or to check them himself to make sure that they weren't live.
Actor Alec Baldwin is facing involuntary manslaughter charges after cinematographer Halyna Hutchins was fatally shot on the Rust movie set. Prosecutors say Baldwin pulled the trigger. But does this then fit the crime, the charge of involuntary manslaughter? Let's ask former federal prosecutor, former assistant U.S. attorney, and Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy, as well as New York-based trial attorney Rebecca Rose Woodland. Good morning to both of you. Andy, I'm going to start with you. Do you think this is a fair charge?
No, I don't think the criminal justice system is for tragic accidents. You know, one of the biggest problems we have in this country, Will, is we have progressive prosecutors throughout America who won't prosecute actual willful criminals. Here, instead, they're using the criminal justice system to go after somebody who, even if you think this was terrible behavior, was not purposeful. This was not an intentional killing. That nobody even alleges that. Not even the state alleges that. This is what the civil justice system is for.
And there, Andy, he would be held to some standard of negligence, gross negligence, and be liable to be sued by the victim's family. Correct?
He was.
But when it comes to the criminal side of this,
case in October.
And Rebecca, when it comes to the criminal side of this, though, involuntary manslaughter, what are your thoughts?
Well, I believe he was properly charged. There is a statute. There is a criminal statute in New Mexico that is involuntary manslaughter, which is criminal negligence. I believe his conduct arose to criminal negligence. He knew or should have known his conduct was reckless. He was on the set not only as an actor, but as an executive producer. It was his responsibility to make sure that the set was safe. And that's why we have these laws. There are criminal procedures in place to prevent people from doing this or to create a safe workplace. If you don't, look at what happened. Someone died. An accident is an accident. This was more than an accident. Yeah. This was disregard for human life.
So, Andy, I want to talk about the standard for a moment. This is often the issue when it comes to legal questions. And Rebecca brings up criminal negligence. Okay. I got to be honest, in the beginning, Andy, I was a little more on your side of this. Like, I don't think he meant to hurt anybody. And look, I'm a gun owner and I understand safe gun practices, but I would have assumed on a set, I sort of outsource a lot of that. I outsource it to the armorer. I outsource these things and then I play pretend. It's not the real world. I'm an actor. But from what I've been informed, Andy, no, that's not true. He had protocols. He understood the protocols. He should have had training. It's a different world, and he recklessly disregarded all of those protocols, those standards for an actor on that set.
Yeah, these are differences in degree. I think there's definitely negligence here. Recklessness, as a criminal law concept, we're generally speaking about depraved mindsets. So you talk about like somebody who shoots a gun wantonly into a crowd, not caring what happened. I don't think that's what happened here, Will. Yes, there were terrible mistakes made here, which is why there was a mega judgment in the case. We didn't get the exact amount, but it's not like there was no liability here. But he did ask right before, moments before this killing happened, whether the gun was hot or not, and he was told that it was a cold gun. So it's not like he didn't check. It's tragic, but I just think, you know, yes, there are statutes, but there's lots of statutes that actually direct themselves at the behavior of people who willfully violate the law, right. And we can't get prosecutors in this country to use them to go after actual criminals. Right. But here you have a situation where nobody is claiming that the guy was trying to kill this woman, and he is subjected to a mega judgment. And I just don't think this is what the criminal law is for.
But there was no intent in this statute. He didn't have to have intent. That's the point. He's not being charged for murder. He's being charged for involuntary manslaughter. And he hasn't been charged yet, but that's what we hear he's going to be charged for. There doesn't need to be intent, but there was recklessness on this set.
Yeah, I don't know that it rises to the level of criminal recklessness, but I guess that's why they'll have the trial.
Right. Well, what a fascinating conversation. Andy McCarthy, Rebecca Rose Woodland. I really appreciate the nature of the disagreement and understanding this from both sides. And as I've had these conversations with Andy on many times, it comes into a reasonable person standard when put into that situation. Was it reckless? Was it depraved? Was it all of these things that satisfy the standard? Thank you both for enlightening us this morning.
Thank you
so much. And Andy, by the way, is going to be on the big Saturday and Sunday show this weekend, so make sure you check that out as well with Joey Jones, Julia Banderas, and Katie Pavlich.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.